What's going on, Notre Dame fans? I'm Patrick Engel, joined by my colleague Tyler Horka of blueandgold.com. Here in Notre Dame Stadium, snowy Notre Dame Stadium, as you can see behind us, after Notre Dame's 44-0 win over Boston College on Senior Day. Notre Dame heads to USC to close the regular season next week, 8-3. Probably like we all expected, but I'll speak for me, and maybe I speak for you too, Tyler. It was kind of a thing of fool me 5 times, not fool me a 6th. So 8-3 like we thought, but maybe not like we thought in the manner that they did it. But the fact that Notre Dame's able to put together a win like this that it had kind of been missing, or maybe some of these games that it's a win over a team that Notre Dame should beat, but maybe not beat as much as they wanted to. Well, if that was what you were looking for, and I think it was for a lot of good reasons, Notre Dame delivered.
Hey, I picked Notre Dame to cover in this game, and they finally came through for me. First time, like Patrick said, that they've covered as a touchdown or more favorite. There were 3 touchdown favorites today, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing picking Notre Dame to. I think I picked Notre Dame to win by 26. I almost double that. They win by 44, and really it could have been worse. As you can see, it starts snowing. I think the game just kind of lost its flow. If it didn't really have any. It was all Notre Dame early, but that kind of, it's not like Notre Dame took its foot off the pedal per se, but when you're beating a team 37-0 at halftime and it starts snowing, just get that thing to the finish line, stay healthy. I know Cam Hart was a little shaken up there at the end, so we'll see the status of him going into that USC game. But just overall, I mean, maybe for the first time, special teams wasn't like a strength of this team today, because you saw Notre Dame kicking off into the wind was not its strong suit today, and there weren't as many touchbacks as we've been accustomed to seeing, but Blake Ruby makes all of his field goals, right? Matt Salerno has a 28-yard punt return, I think set up a touchdown.
Made up for a muff too.
Yeah, exactly. So he gets Notre Dame across midfield, but at the end of the day, Notre Dame won this game exactly how it wants to win every single game it plays. Rushed for 281 yards. And Marcus Freeman, in his post-game press conference, he was kind of fiddling with the stat sheet, and he was like, how many yards did we run for? A reporter exclaims, 281. He goes, that's pretty good. It is pretty good, Patrick. And the ground game, the offensive line, they did its job again today. And when the weather is like this, you got to run the ball. Notre Dame was the only team that came out and was able to do that today.
Yeah, and I asked Marcus Freeman about just the importance of like getting back to those strengths, which, as we know, running the ball. And he had mentioned like they had some conversations with him and Tommy Rees and some of the other offensive staff members on Friday night before the game, and eventually the tone was like, it doesn't matter what they throw at us, how many guys Boston College puts in the box, they just wanted to run the ball no matter what, and they succeeded. And it wasn't like, these were garbage time yards. They averaged
51 yards right off the
bat, 214 in the first half on 9.7 yards a pop, compared to Boston College's 1 rushing yard in the first half.
Yeah.
I know it's sack adjusted, but take the sacks out, and it was still, the running back average per carry was not very good or any at all explosive chunk plays in Boston College's run game. And then still able to get a pronounced field position advantage for Notre Dame, which on a day like this, and when you're running the ball like Notre Dame wants to, a big deal. Even without that special teams, like you said, kind of just an okay day for them, because of all the turnovers they were able to force. Kind of a thing that kind of felt like, all right, dam just kind of broke open, and maybe it was heading that way, or you're starting to get some turnovers just based on the ball bouncing the right way, or a fumble kind of reverting to the mean that you expected it would, when Notre Dame wasn't really getting any of those. And now it's just, all right, deluge of them. Ben Morrison continues to really make his claim as the Irish's best defensive back, if not one of their best defensive players. Interesting decision by Boston College to go at him on the first play of the game. And then after he shut that down and then got the pick to throw at him again deep, and he picks it off. So probably a lesson learned the hard way and later than Emmett Moorhead, BC quarterback, wanted to. So just kind of a good complimentary day, like we said. That's something Notre Dame really needs to do well to win in the manner that it's constructed right now. So even without special teams being this dominant force, still able to put that together, win field position, and control the clock in all the manners it wants to, and just has to be feeling pretty good about itself as far as getting back to what its identity is on offense and what it does really well on offense, ahead of a game where it should be an advantageous matchup to run it, given USC's struggles there, and given that you're going to want to run it to try to play keep away with Caleb Williams on offense. So if you were looking to see that kind of thing, you definitely got it.
Yeah, you got back to the ground game, as I mentioned. That was number one. You didn't want to stack two performances of what the heck was Notre Dame doing, trying to run the ball, not running the ball, trying to run the ball. That was eradicated. And then I think you brought up another good point. This might have been the first game that I've sat there and watched this season for Notre Dame where I felt that they're not praying for a turnover. I think they're going to get one. You just sat there and you're like, it would not shock me if Ben Morrison picks this pass off, and he did. And he did 3 times. And you get the ball a couple other ways as well. That wasn't there earlier in the season where, who was it? Chris Smith and Jack Kaiser who came in. And yeah, Notre Dame had plenty of plays earlier this season where it would fluster a quarterback and flush him out like that. But you either thought throwaway, he's going to run out of bounds, or they might sack him. This time, get the ball out. Isaiah Foskey, who sets the sack record, by the way. Congratulations to him. I mean, that's a pretty cool thing. He goes up on the scoreboard right at the end of the half, and those are the types of plays that you were missing if you're Notre Dame earlier in the season, and you're going into a game against one of the best offenses you've played all season, probably the best offense you've played, well, maybe North Carolina, but you had Ohio State and North Carolina in the first month of the season. You haven't really faced someone like that since then. Notre Dame out here today. Boston College is not USC, but 5 turnovers in a game is 5 turnovers in a game, and when your special teams isn't scoring like it has been in the past couple games, your defense, if you turn the ball over 5 times, that's going to lead to points. There's not a team in the country that can turn a team over 5 times and probably not score at least 1 touchdown off of those. So Notre Dame's doing a good job there, and I think that gives you a little bit of comfort and confidence going into USC, because if you don't turn over Caleb Williams in that offense, you're probably going to have a long day.
And they have not turned it over really at all. He has 2 interceptions all year. So just the fact that you're seeing more and more plays on the ball from the secondary, and particularly Ben Morrison, and then the production and translation of getting pressure, but turning that into sacks, turning it into strip sacks, like you saw Jack Kaiser did there, like you saw Xavier Watts on that safety blitz where he's just easy pickings, actually blitzes from the line of scrimmage, and instead of kind of way back there sometimes where you saw guys early in the year on those
they just don't make a difference.
Ill-fated safety blitzes just because they had so much ground to cover there. So defensively, the game you wanted to see before you go and play, a really, really talented, really, really skilled offense with a quarterback who has a pretty good shot in Caleb Williams to end up in New York as a Heisman finalist. And we can briefly touch on Drew Pine here, and kind of an easy game to forget in a good way, just in that we're seeing Notre Dame run the ball up and down the field in the first half, and I remember at one point I turned to you, Tyler, and mentioned, like, is it even like, can you tell or hard to notice, like, he had 6 straight incompletions at one point? Like, no, because they were running the ball well without him, and really because he had a drive right before he misfired on those 6, where he went 6 of 7, and he kind of marched them down there. So you had enough there, even though you wanted to run the ball, establish a run, get back to that, to still say, like, when BC dictated that you wanted to throw or gave you looks to throw, it will do it enough, especially on that 1 touchdown drive in the first half where it was 8 plays. He throws 7 passes and completes 6 of them. So those are the kind of things you want to see where, and this was to use Marcus Freeman's words too, where either run the ball or make them pay. So I don't know how many times Notre Dame really needed to make BC pay today, because unlike Navy, they weren't throwing all those 0 pressures, weren't just selling out, putting 9 guys in the box. But when those looks were there, when Michael Mayer was open, when they had space to throw downfield there to Deion Colzion on 3rd and 8, I believe it was, like, you still saw those cashed in enough, and really that's just what you're going to have to ask them to do. And if you're going to win next week and beat whichever probably pretty solid team you might draw in a bowl game, you just have to have enough confidence and enough evidence on tape recently that Pine can deliver in those moments often enough to function in offense.
Here's the thing about Notre Dame's offense. When it's running as well as it did today, where Logan Diggs goes 17 times for 115 yards, I think it was. Audric Estime scores 2 touchdowns. Chris Tyree gets in on the ground. He got in the end zone on the ground as well. When you're getting all of that from those 3 guys, you really only need Drew Pine to have one of those drives that you mentioned where he goes 6 of 7 and he manufactures all the points on that drive. He had great placement to, I forget who it was, but it was a little out route, kind of just put it right where it needed to be. It might have been Jaden Thomas.
I think so.
He hits Logan Diggs down the field in a perfect spot where Diggs almost a little bit too far out in front of him, but that's exactly what you want to do. You lead him, you don't overthrow him, you don't underthrow him. So you only need one of those drives where he's making all of those throws. As long as that ends in 7 points, you know you're going to get 7 points by literally running every single time. I don't have the drive sheet in front of me, but some of those field position drives where they were set up by the turnovers, ran the ball 4 or 5 times and they're in the end zone already. So if you have one of those drives from Pine and he's not turning it over, this is another game where he does not throw a pick. I know there was a batted pass, but
pretty inconsequential.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what's his ratio at this point this season? Is it 19 touchdowns now and 5 interceptions? I mean, it's
roughly right.
It's good.
Without having the season stats in front, yeah.
For a backup quarterback who came in and started for the first time in his career in Game 3 of this season and is now 8-1 as a starter, by the way, for those people who like numbers, there are a couple for you, pretty important ones. You get what you need out of the guy. If he throws for 150 yards, takes care of the ball, has that one drive where you're like, hey, he was awesome. He just gave us 7 points, and Notre Dame is doing everything else it's doing offensively, running the football, you're going to be fine. It's not like Notre Dame needs Drew Pine to go out there and out-duel Caleb Williams next week. Hey, he played pretty well against North Carolina in that game. I wouldn't say he out-dueled Drake May, but he played better than Drake May for stretches of that game.
If you get half at least.
Yeah, for sure in the first half. Look, it's not getting back to that point with Drew Pine this year. I think we've seen enough since then to say, hey, he's more like the guy we've seen in the last month than we saw in the first month. But if you get the Drew Pine who played today and Notre Dame's able to run the ball, you can win with that guy and won 44-0 with that guy today.
Yeah, I think, like you mentioned, we've seen enough reasons in the past month or so why Notre Dame has had to lean into the run game and why maybe trying to go shot for shot with someone through the air is not really a proposition that's going to work for him. But even within that, I think you're seeing enough comfort in him giving you something within that structure to feel good enough about, having a shot to beat USC, even though, yeah, you probably don't think of Drew Pine at all out-dueling Caleb Williams. But Notre Dame 8-3, heading into USC next week to close the regular season. Tyler, you and I will be there. I think our backdrop for that post-game video will be a little bit different than this snow that's coming down.
I don't think I'll need this or the coat that I just took off before this.
It will not be fleece season in LA, that's for sure. But we will see you next week. Signing off from Notre Dame Stadium. He's Tyler Horka. I'm Patrick Engel.